happy that you chose me over the pizza. The topic of my talk is AI-powered customer journey. That's sort of a bridge topic because when I was writing this one, I was still working in e-commerce, and that has sort of changed. So there won't be an awful lot of references to specific things in terms of company, but that was discouraged in the guidebook anyway, so I think we're fine. What's the deal with e-commerce? Everybody is competing for the same shrinking pie. Like, a lot of people want to sell you their stuff or want to make sure you buy the stuff through their platform. There's a limited amount of people, everyone has a limited amount of money, and entry barrier to this business is pretty small. So what can you do? You can try to eliminate the competition. Well, there's Geneva Convention, so you probably shouldn't do that. Or you can try to do it smarter to make sure, that probably helps, I think. Or you can try to be smarter about how you attract people to make sure they come to you and not one of the gazillion competitors out there. And because I have a tendency to use very subtle metaphors, hence this picture. How does a user journey through a platform work? Well, first we have acquisition. We need to make sure the potential customer is somehow attracted to us. Again, among the multitude of choices. Then they can try to buy something through the platform using classifieds, or they can try to sell something, and we will cover a little bit of both. Then we need to know, well, what stage of the journey are they in? Are they just casually browsing? Are they bored? Why are they here? Maybe they are using it as a dating app, which has been known to happen, by the way. Then there's communication. When buyers and sellers come together, the best way to think of an e-commerce platform is like an electronic marketplace. So think something like, actually don't know what's the biggest one in Portugal. I know in Spain it's Milanuncios. There's Marktplaats in the Netherlands, eBay Kleinanzeigen in Germany, those kinds of platforms. eBay in the US, obviously. The best way to think about it, the place that brings buyers and sellers together, and this is from a perspective of the person running this electronic marketplace. How do we make sure, well, it's all nice and smooth experience for everyone? Buyers and sellers need to talk at some point so that, well, they come to an agreement. That's how free exchange works. Then there's agreeing on payment and delivery options. At each of those stages, with the exception of the acquisition part, there is something to be said and improved using machine learning. In ad insertion, when we want to show, I'll first give you a big picture overview and then get to the part where, well, the nitty-gritty. If you want to place an ad, you got your second-hand, whatever, jacket, bike, whatever it is. Well, you want to place an ad so people can find you. If you're searching to buy something, well, you want to find out what's out there, which means we need to serve you the experience in a smooth manner that's convenient to you and easy to read. Buyer choice, what I mentioned earlier, who are you? Why are you here? Are you a regular person who does most of their shopping on a second-hand market, or just occasionally doing something? Or maybe you are bored on a bus home and just clicking through stuff. Talking to people, different things related to payment, and delivery. Today, I will focus mostly on the second and the third one, because that's where the most interesting stuff related to AI and generative AI specifically happens. It's not to say that the others are not important. It's just that this is 2023. Binary classification using imbalanced data, it's not exactly what you would call cutting-edge technology. Transfer learning, maybe a little bit. Multi-class classification, again, useful, not super interesting. So first, let's have a look at the problem of ad insertion. This is what a typical ad on a classified's website might look like. Ignore the fact that it's all in Dutch. I just took a snapshot from Marktplaats. what do we have here? We have a name of the article. We have a picture of the article, okay, black and white dress on a lady who looks like she's having a good day. General blah, blah, blah about sharing. Description of the article. This is what it looks like in a best case scenario. This is, if an ad looks like this, a seller can be fairly confident people will find it and they will interact with it. It's got a nice quality picture. It says clearly here, jurk is Dutch for dress, says clearly what it is, and it has a description and contact. Unfortunately, real life usually doesn't deliver best case scenarios, which means we need to figure out what to do about it as a platform if we still want to ensure things happen. And first problem is usually people put in pretty horrible, well, not usually, in a disturbingly large proportion, people put horrible pictures. Like overexposed, not showing what it's really supposed to be about, confusing an e-commerce platform with Instagram, all sorts of things. Showing interesting stuff, but not the one that this is really about. So, well, we could say, get lost, we don't care. If you put in lousy ad, it's your own fault. But in a competitive market, which I so subtly visualized with cutting the cake at the beginning, that's not an option you can afford. You have to make sure the customer still gets stuff done, even if they themselves didn't put the effort. It's not quite babysitting them, but not far from it. Starting with a higher, I'll tell you the 2 bits that we'll be using, and then I'll show you how we will use them. We want to improve the image. We want to do it at scale, because nobody has the time or the patience to go through each and every ad that's being posted and correct it manually. And we want to do it with open source models, unless we want to go bankrupt with whatever, Adobe or something like that. So the first thing we use is Stable Diffusion. A quick show of hands, how many of you know what Stable Diffusion is? Half-ish. Crash intro for the others. Everyone heard of ChatGPT, where you can get it to write haiku, and it has been mentioned gazillion times since yesterday morning. Stable Diffusion is creating images, rodeo cowboy lizard riding through cyberpunk panda forest. If that's your idea of fantasy, yep, Stable Diffusion can get it done. I mean, the pandas might look a little creepy, but it will get there. And the important bit, it's open source. Pro, oh, here it is. Go do what you want with it. Cons, it can be used to generate the kind of content you probably shouldn't be displaying in public places. Let's call it politely that way. Price of freedom. The open source model. There are clones, there are variations, but this is the thing. Runs on reasonable hardware. So you don't have to, generate the kind of carbon footprint with your GPU that will make Greta have a heart attack. Just go to the website, download it, and follow one of gazillion tutorials that show you how to do it. Important feature from this one. It can create images, but it can also modify part of images, which is referred to as in-painting, and that's the part that we will be using. For the more technically minded among you, quick overview of the architecture. The important part is this has certain similarities with what you might recognize, especially the Q, K, and V notation from transformers, but that's just a unit in between. Overall, the thing about images, just about every other modality you can think of, text, music, voice, it's all running on LLM. Image is not. Well, you can do vision transformer, but diffusion models just work much better. Hence, some similarity, but not an awful lot. And the second thing, segment anything. Meta being the company about which I'm not completely sure what to think, really. Because on the one hand, I apologize to any Meta employees in the audience. On the one hand, it doesn't have, to put it politely, the greatest of records with handling user data. And I mean, the Cambridge Analytics affair, that's like exhibit A, but there's a laundry list of other situations. On the other hand, something happened there, starting spring this year roughly, and they've been dropping open source models with really permissive licenses like crazy. How can you have this duality within one company is beyond me, but it's also luckily outside the topic of this conversation. One of the things they dropped is called segment anything model, which they advertise as the foundational model for segmentation. Long story short, you throw anything you need segmented in your image, and they pre-trained it on so much stuff, it will get segmented. So, rather handy. Multimodal prompts, you can describe what you want using text, but also showing an image, ta-da-da. Here you can have a look at the architecture. That's more or less how it works. It decodes the image, embeds it, breaks down into components, and then you get what are the different masks and elements of this image that we want to play with. Now, it's not that I have mentally gone to Nerdville. There's a reason I'm talking about this. This is a reasonably typical example of what people post when they want to sell second-hand clothing. I mean, it's some sort of clothing. I mean, you look at me, I'm not a fashionista, so I don't even know what it's called. But the important point is, in terms of making this an interesting photo to sell, this is beige, this is brown, this is, well, really dirty brown, and this is brown, well, brown yellowish. Not exactly what you would call an image that shows what we want and what's attractive about this. I mean, I don't find this attractive at all, but like I said, hashtag fashionista. So what can we do about this one? Those, by the way, the part I'm showing here, those are snapshots for a demo built in Gradio. And for any of you who, like me, come primarily from data science background and the idea of building a UI inspires an existential terror, try Gradio. This is building UI for people who are afraid of building a UI. And I'm speaking from experience. It really is simple. If you can pretty much write your stuff in a Python notebook, then with like 15 minutes refactoring, you have a running interface that looks like this. Not something you can show to client, but good enough to demo. Swimming to shore, because I have no idea how I'm doing time-wise since this thing has stopped. This is our image. What can we do about this? I wish I could do it interactively, but I'll try. Simulate it. If you have this image, you essentially click a bunch of times on the clothing item itself. This will generate you a mask. And you can flip. You can decide that essentially white is what's supposed to be modified, black is what is supposed to remain intact, but you can flip it. For the purpose of this demo, I need to keep the clothing, because that's what we want to sell, and clean up the rest. And then, once we have the mask, we add a prompt description. Dress in a blue room, voila. Segment anything took care of separating the dress from the background. Stable diffusion took care of in painting this part with, blue room. It is a step in the right direction because at least we have contrast. It's blue against beige-ish. It's still, I mean, we don't really need this, whatever this pattern is, Brownian motion in 2D. Can we improve it? And the thing is, yes, we can quite simply. We just make the prompt a little more specific. And, well, the good news is, it became plain boring and clearly showing what we have underneath. Less good news, it introduced some artifacts, and that's something I'm kind of digging into, but haven't sorted it out yet. Because if you observe, it changed the color of the coat hanger. It changed the shape a little bit. Here it's narrow, here it's broader. So it's not perfect, but it is a step in the right direction. Then there's text. The more text you have describing what it really is, the better the search based on text will function. And at this stage, majority of platforms have mostly search-based text because getting image-based search in production served to all the customers, it's easy conceptually, and then a horror show when you want to put it in practice. So, well, the better the description, the more likely someone will find that ad, actually. Trouble is, most people can't be bothered. They literally leave this empty, and then they are extremely disappointed that their ad is not getting clicked. Well, we are a nice company, we will help them out. The bunch of abbreviations here are demonstrations of the, what I show, the stable diffusion, that's text to image. I describe what I see in the image, I'm getting the cyberpunk pandas and whatnot. But you can move between modalities in the other direction. If you guys have been exposed to it, I think that was one of the use cases people were showing for LSTM, if I'm not mistaken, automatically generating captions for images. The best way to think about this part, more technically advanced version of the same idea. You start with an image and you try to generate a proper description. Bunch of things floating around. Clip was the first one from OpenAI, funnily enough. Bleep, Salesforce became a major player in the generative AI space, which is something I'm still wrapping my head around. I've had some experience with using Mini GPT-4. The good news is it works quickly, reasonably. The bad news, that thing is clunky. Like, think of the worst case, you had to match versions of dependencies and then see what happens. Oh, the time started again. Quick overview of the architecture, and this is what we can achieve that way. You upload an image and say, write me an advertisement for selling this jacket. Wall of text. You have the description like this, with material and whatnot. This ad all of a sudden became way better. But you can go beyond that. Say you want to do interior decoration. Fine, describe me the room. What feelings does it evoke? Because people say, well, I want it cozy, or I want it cold industrial. There you go. Have no fear, lava is here. Long story short, that's the last one, good. Generative AI pretty much changes the face of e-commerce. Everything that was that's like a poster child for showing all the soul-crushingly boring, tedious tasks that are needed and nobody wants to do it. Gen AI can. Or at least, well, algos, I think, are not getting bored. Every stage of the buyer journey, which I'm happy to elaborate on later, can be made better with this one. And if you check up on this subject in something like a month, there's a solid chance what I showed here, namely lava, as the most recent thing, it will have been, somebody will have beaten it by then. Have it faster, running with lower requirements, and whatnot. And I'm reasonably confident this is the 20 minutes. So that would be it from me.
All right. Thank you so much, Konrad, for your presentation. Do you want to have a seat to ask a few questions? And hey, folks, help me out here with questions. There's only 2 questions so far. Let's start with the first one. The Nick, data engineer for Muse, is asking, can you automate the prompting in the advertising insertion?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You just need to have some sort of basic idea what is it that you want to prompt the LLM about, and then you take it from there. So yes, we can automate it.
Fantastic. And the next one is from Francisco Sampaio, Senior Data and AI Engineering. And his question is, what is the line that separates these from false advertising?
Legal. Much the same way as my karate trainer in high school used to say, you can use a knife to attack somebody, or you can use it to cut a bread to make your child a sandwich. And it's the same knife. A tool in itself is morally neutral. So it's all about internal processes and governance and making sure we don't cross any red lines.
Fantastic. I also have one question here that is after you applying these kind of techniques on the customer journey, did you measure actually like the improvement in terms of
Yes.
the salesperson? And is it kind of an like how did you measure? And was kind of a good improvement, or you always kind of have a recurrent improvement on that one?
We did measure. We ran an A/B test. Essentially, we selected two subsets of traffic on which we started increasing it. And one group, well, just got the old interface that had, big white box staring at them where the text should be. And the other got a pre-generated text. And then it seems like there's something that scares people about an empty white box. Because the moment they saw some text, even if they didn't like it that much and started modifying it, they still went through with it. And then the ad was posted with a modified text. And this was, if I remember correctly, something like 8% increase in ad vibrancy. So number of times it was viewed, clicked, or something like that.
Fantastic. Another one is from Diogo Eusebio. How transparent is or should be the update of an advert to a seller?
They should know. They should know, absolutely. We cannot modify it without their consent. Okay. So, yeah, that's absolutely obvious.
Usually, like on this question, I also will add, like, do you need to have an improvement from the customer, and then it's published, or it's kind of automated published before?
We're moving towards automating it.
Okay.
So that essentially, when in the terms and conditions, but not buried on page 17, you agree to receive suggestions around how to improve it, but people can, of course, opt out of it as well.
Perfect. Also, another question from Jan Egner, Robert, and question is: are there problems with age-generated description, over-promising, and making false claims about the product?
That is an issue. That is an issue. This is a special case, essentially, of hallucinating. So we have to. we haven't figured it out yet. The basic idea was, well, you can run a sort of second-stage classifier, seeing if this AI-generated description is not completely outlandish. The question is, how do you know it's outlandish? Maybe a user actually wants to say, this is the greatest jacket. This will make you the most manly man in manly history of the planet. They are legally allowed to say that. Even if I think it's ridiculous, it's legal. Correct. So we cannot overdo it. We're not a nanny.
Perfect. And also another question that I had on your presentation, when you were kind of showing kind of the three different images, right? The dress, and then you were saying kind of you need kind of to click on the dress, and then kind of shows up like the description. Going back to the first question, like the clicking is also something that you can automate.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, you might need to fine tune it a little bit so it doesn't automatically segment, for instance, the coat hanger together with the coat, with the dress, but that's not a hugely difficult issue.
Okay, perfect. And I think, we have time for another one, and it's from Francisco Sampaio, senior data scientist and AI engineering, and he's asking, what measures can be taken to tackle alignment and governance?
Oh, that's not a 3 minutes, 20 seconds question, but I'll try. On the one hand, you can put a lot into the system prompt. So there's something that's taken always into account as part of the context. So don't use inappropriate vocabulary, don't generate, NSFW images, those kinds of things. On the other hand, we don't want to overdo it and, excuse my language, castrate the model like ChatGPT is castrated, because they went so far in the direction of let's try to make it safe. Even worse, better example is DALL-E 3. I understand that if someone enters an inappropriate description for your definition of this, it's going to block you. But DALL-E 3 is so sensitive. I actually checked it the other day. Sports car rushing on a highway or something like this, boom, inappropriate filter. I'm like, why? Under what definition is a sports car on a highway inappropriate content? So you don't want to overdo it in that direction either. It's an ongoing process.
Fantastic. And I think, yeah, there are any more questions here, but I have a last one is when you, like, because like this is a customer journey plan, do you, like, once you have like some customers that I believe kind of upload good images, good text, and those kind of things, you kind of prioritize the other customers on the model or not in terms of changing their image, changing like there isn't any kind of prioritization in terms of who are kind of the best customers to actually don't need to use or to go through this model and the other ones or no, or it's kind of everybody?
No, we're not really prioritizing on that because it's ultimately up to the customer. If they want to take their chances with what we would think is a horrible image, but they're like, nope, I'll stand by it. It's my masterpiece of art. It's like, fine, your ad, your choice.